Has having limited time ever impacted your performance at work? How so, and can you give an example?
Sure, yeah. So I have a painting job, so we paint things all around campus. Um, and there's been a few times where our boss has just given us a job and said, do this by the end of the day, and the job is clearly just way too big for that. We don't have enough time for that, so we have to end up rushing it. Doesn't come out as well, but we finished it, but just came out really sloppy.
Do you have any thoughts on how you could have adapted to that better? And do you think that's something that may keep happening? Will you do something different next time?
I think it'll definitely keep happening just because that's the nature of the job. I don't know, we could talk to our boss, I guess, but he's our boss, so.
That's kind of what I was going to give you advice towards. I think in situations like that, the best thing you can do is communicate. And a lot of times bosses don't really understand the kind of burden they're putting on their employees. So I think going to your boss and kind of explaining how they need to be realistic and how it's tough for your employees to complete good work on that time restraint, I think that could end up helping a lot. And if that doesn't work, then I think talking to your employees more and kind of making sure you guys are on the same page will definitely work in your favor a lot. So if you come to a situation like that, I recommend definitely try something like that. Next, have you ever dealt with too much work in the workplace? And again, can you give an example and how you handled it, and what do you think you would do if that happens again in the future?
Sure. So when I used to work at Whole Foods, we had to fulfill orders for people, and it was me and just a bunch of kids my age, so pretty much all teenagers, with really a big lack in adult supervision. Maybe a manager there once a week, but otherwise it was just us. And we were kind of just free for all, the tons of orders, no real structure to the hierarchy there, and just very busy, hectic, every man for himself mentality.
Cool. Yeah, I think a lot of a big reality in the workplace is a lot of times you are on your own for a lot of assignments, and it can feel kind of unstructured. So I think the best thing that you can always do is take some time aside with your coworkers and talk to each other and kind of gauge what everyone does best and what everyone enjoys doing. That way from there you can kind of split up responsibilities based on what people do well, and that'll make your process a lot more efficient, and it'll kind of give everyone specific tasks to do, so they're not just going around aimlessly trying to complete things.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So next, have you ever had to deal with other people not doing their part in the workplace? Do you have an example of that as well?
Yeah, so back at the paint shop that I work at here on campus, won't name names of course, but one of the students doesn't tend to help out with painting all that much. Sometimes he's just over there on his phone texting the whole time. So there's really only 3 of us painting when there should be 4 of us, which is frustrating, but I don't say anything because I don't really care that much. I get paid either way, but it is annoying.
Okay, yeah, so you don't see anything, you don't see it being any different in the future. You don't think
For now, I'm not going to say anything. Unless it gets really bad or we really need his help sometime, I won't say anything, but it's annoying. I wish he wouldn't do that.
Yeah, well, even if it's not something that really bothers you too much right now, social loafing can definitely be something that hurts down the line. And I think in situations like that, what may help is going to talk to that person and not necessarily confronting them right away about how they're not doing their part, but kind of trying to pick their brain as to what might be going on. Sometimes there may be a home situation that's not great for them, or they may be under a lot of other stress. So I think getting to know them and kind of trying to understand their reasonings for the way they behave, and then from there, being able to kind of work in the fact that despite everything, it is still important that they play their part because it's unfair to everyone else. I think you may see some success in the future if you start going that route. Lastly, have you ever dealt with conflict among employees in the workplace, and do you have an example of that?
Yeah, so back at Whole Foods when I used to work there, um, when the managers would show up, a lot of the time they're pretty young, maybe just a few years older than me, and for the few older employees that we did have, 50, 55, 60, however old they might be, they're gonna have a tough time taking orders from someone my age. So when they would get orders taken from someone, and this person would only show up once a week, so it's already annoying enough, they would have a tough time handling that, and sometimes there were some definite arguments between them and and their bosses.
Did you do anything about that, and would you anticipate doing that again in the future?
I personally did not. That was just more of a I'm gonna stay out of it type situation, so I kept my distance.
Cool. Yeah, I understand that thought process, but a lot of times I think the only way it can get better is for people to act on it. And I think the best way you can act on that is passively by getting to know that person, kind of like I said in the last example, but more so, I think a lot of times when a coworker is in a situation where with like the power struggle, they kind of have a lot of like built up emotions about it that they don't feel like they can really share with anyone. So I think getting to know your coworkers and on a personal level, and kind of allowing them to be honest with you on how they're feeling, it'll definitely help them to kind of manage that because they feel like they're not just taking on that burden by themselves, and then you may not even have to face that conflict in the future. So I think for all of these examples, the main point is just, regardless of your hard skills, the best way to avoid conflict and be efficient in the workplace is to communicate with those around you, make sure you get to know them, and to set time aside from conversations that aren't work related. That way everyone can kind of relieve the stresses of work and feel like they're welcomed in their roles.